Welcome to Candid Catholic Convos, a program brought to you by the Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg. Our mission is to humanize the Church and help you to grow in your faith, love, and understanding. I'm your host, Rachel Trochet, a cradle Catholic who's only human and struggled with faith on more than one occasion. Each week, you'll hear engaging, down-to-earth interviews and actionable strategies you can implement into your life with ease to help you grow closer to God. If you're ready to open your heart and step fully into the person God created you to be, then you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Good morning and a very, very happy Easter. From the Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg, it's once again a wonderful time to spend and celebrate this joyous season with the Most Reverend Ronald W. Gaynor, the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg. Bishop, as always, your E&C friend Michael Parks here, and thank you so much for taking time out with us on this most joyous day and season.
You're most welcome, Michael. It's always a pleasure to have this conversation, so it's good to be with you and all of our listeners.
And I always tell you this, what this means, and I don't know if you know, and I know that when you go out and meet and greet with so many people throughout the diocese in this huge region that we make up the diocese, but this means so much to a lot of people to have a sit down, and it's conversation and it's also inspiration about the things that we talk about, and especially as we celebrate Easter, and maybe learn and maybe help you understand this most joyous time of year, and maybe make it even brighter for you, especially for what's going on in the world today. We're wrapping up Lent, and as we went through Holy Week and enter Holy Week, but before we talk about that, I know a topic on everyone's mind is Ukraine. At the end of March, Pope Francis consecrated Russia and Ukraine to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and I know that you took part in that act, and I also understand the diocese is doing whatever they can, as a lot of us are, to support the people of Ukraine through the Ukrainian Catholic Philadelphia. Can you explain that, what that has to do with?
Surely, Michael. I did take part, as I hope every bishop throughout the world was invited to do so. And at our cathedral at noon Mass on the Feast of the Annunciation, March 25th, we had a Mass. I was very impressed by the number of faithful who came out for that Mass to, as you say, consecrate Russia and Ukraine to the Immaculate Heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and seeking her intercession to restore peace there in Ukraine. The first thing I would recommend, of course, is that we do need to continue to pray. That consecration was a highlight, but daily, constantly, we need to pray. We believe in the power of prayer, and what we need here clearly is a conversion. There's this hatred that's caused so much death, violence, and destruction in Ukraine is a matter of a conversion of hearts. So we pray for the grace of that conversion in the Russian leaders, especially the president of Russia. And we pray, too, for all world leaders that they might find a peaceful resolution before this violence even escalates to a more tragic degree. Here in the Diocese of Harrisburg, we are supporting the people of Ukraine, especially humanitarian efforts, through the Ukrainian Archeparchy of Philadelphia. The Archbishop there, Archbishop Boris Gudziak, spent over 30 years of his life. He's born in the United States, but spent over 30 years of his life in the Ukraine. So he's very, very connected there. And I thought the best way was to channel our charity through their efforts, because they know exactly where the money needs to be directed. So our parishes, all of our parishes, have been encouraged to take up a collection, and those funds will go through the Ukrainian Catholic Archeparchy of Philadelphia and then channeled where they're most needed. I heard the story of one of our parishes already took that collection up. It's a small parish, and they got over $25,000 for that relief for the. So it clearly so heavily on all of our hearts. The other aspect of this, we stand prepared if we have the opportunity to do some resettlement of refugees from Ukraine. Those people are carefully vetted by the U.S. State Department, and we're able, and we have been over the years, resettling refugees, getting them into homes, getting them jobs, getting them settled into here in a place of peace and harmony for them, because they have to flee for their lives from their own country. So we're hoping if we're invited and have the opportunity, we're prepared to be able to settle some Ukrainian refugees here in the territory of our 15 counties of the Diocese of Harrisburg.
When you use the term, maybe you could put this in terms we can understand. You use the term consecrated Russia and Ukraine to the Blessed Virgin Mary. What does that basically mean?
It's a very solemn prayer in which we invoke the intercessory power of Mary to direct her intercession precisely to the restoration of peace. Pope St. John Paul II actually did that in union with the bishops of the world in 1984. It's connected, of course, to the mystery of the visions of our Blessed Mother at Fatima. And Mary directed at that time, at the beginning of the 20th century, to the children of Fatima that Russia should be consecrated to the Blessed Mother. So it's a solemn prayer invoking the powerful intercession of the Mother of God.
And I think you may have answered some of this, but this has been a question that's been going on throughout all time and all creation. When things like this happen, bad things, tragic things, and we know what's been going on in the world, and so many people say to themselves who believe in God and say, how can God let such bad things happen to good people? And I'm sure a lot of our parishioners have come to their priest, and people come to you and ask the same thing. How do you answer a question like that?
Well, I think we might ask the same thing as you mentioned. We were preparing to celebrate. We entered a Holy Week and Good Friday. Where was God on Good Friday when His own Son hung on the cross and died on the cross for us? So many times we think God has abandoned us when we see suffering and violence and death. But I think Good Friday reminds us that God is in the middle of it. He is there to accompany us in that suffering. He can't prevent or override human free will. This tragic situation is a free choice being made to invade Ukraine and inflict this suffering on the people and destruction on the land. And my answer to that is God is right there in the midst of that suffering. He hasn't abandoned us. It's not a punishment that He's sending upon the people, but rather, just as our Lord Himself is on the cross on Good Friday, God is with us in every suffering, and He wants to turn that suffering into new life. I think that's the best way that we can look at it, through the eyes of our Christian and our Easter faith.
Yeah, and I think that you brought up a good point. He allows us free will, and if we choose to do that, then that is one of the things that we decide to do. The situation in Ukraine, it is certainly heart-wrenching to watch, especially with all the photos, and we're living in a time now where everything can be filmed. We never had this situation in a war or a world war before, where cameras and everything were showing the devastation and the death that's going on. But it's uplifting to know that the diocese and the people of the diocese are working together, provide aid, as you mentioned before. And speaking of working together, what's going on with this synod that I keep hearing about?
Well, yes, it's a word that is an ancient word in the Church, but one that we haven't used too very often, at least in the Latin Catholic Church. But when you say working together, the very word synod comes from two Greek words, and it means together on the road or together on the way. And last October 2021, Pope Francis announced an initiative called for a synodal church, communion, participation, and mission. So it's a 2-year process that he's invited us to embrace, calling together the Catholic faithful, all clergy, religious, and laity, to listen, to dialogue, to discern, and to pray with each other. The goal here is not to come up with some new programs or pastoral plan. We have that. Christ has given us the plan. But rather, the goal of the synodal process is to be present with each other, to listen to each other, to learn from each other, and grow closer to Christ and to one another in his body, the church. So parishes throughout the diocese are hosting consultations or listening sessions, and they're gathering feedback. What are the real sentiments, the thoughts of the faithful, on a wide range of topics that were provided by the Vatican, topics such as, who are we as a church? What does it mean to be Catholic? How do we listen? Are we a listening church? How do we communicate the good news to the world around us? How do we speak about our faith? Discussing our divine worship. What is our experience at Mass? And in general, the co-responsibility of all the baptized for the Church's mission. So we have all these topics on our diocesan website, and I invite our listeners especially, you can submit your feedback on these various themes through our website, and I invite our listeners to take up that opportunity. Once all of the listening sessions or the synodal sessions are complete, the diocese will compile them here at our offices, and then we'll send them on a condensed version of what we've heard to the Conference of Catholic Bishops in Washington, and that feedback will be received from all the dioceses, and then eventually they'll compile everything that was sent to them, and they'll be sent to the appropriate office at the Vatican. And then the synodal process concludes in October of 2023, so October of next year, with the 16th Ordinary General Assembly of the Synod of Bishops. So I certainly encourage, once again, our listeners to participate in this important process by either attending one of the listening events at your parish, or by submitting your thoughts and your hopes, your concerns for the Church on the diocesan website.
It's kind of like a Facebook to find out what's going on, but hopefully more civil, because you know, Bishop, and as we all know, social media and the internet can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. But opening up these doors, and as you mentioned, there's nothing better than a good sit down, face to face with people to learn about the needs and the concerns of what's going on in the diocese. It's good for the heart.
It is. Yeah. It is. And, having been deprived of a lot of in-person opportunities by COVID, I think our folks are really ready to come together in person, as you say, face-to-face, and have these serious discussions and listening, too, to one another's concerns and thoughts.
Bishop, I understand that recently, on March 19th, you celebrated your 8th anniversary as the Bishop of Harrisburg, and it's needless to say, it's certainly been a challenging several years. But as you reflect back on this time, what do you think have been your best accomplishments thus far? And also, let's talk about some of your biggest challenges.
Well, let's do the challenges first and get them off the table, because they were significant. Certainly, the sexual abuse crisis was a major challenge during my time here, as it broke locally and in the state. Our bankruptcy of the diocese, we're very near the end of that process. I hope, thank God. And of course, COVID was a major challenge to navigate during these last 2 years. But I'd rather focus on accomplishments. And when I say accomplishments, I don't mean that they're my accomplishments. I've been blessed with wonderful co-workers here. And my vision of the diocese is that we exist to support our parishes. The parish is where the rubber meets the road. That's where the faithful gather for worship, for catechesis, for service to the local communities and those in need. And so the diocese needs to be a resource and help give direction and empower our parish communities. And I'm very happy to say that over these years we've been able to add wonderful staff here to the diocesan offices to kind of build up parts of the area, parts of our office staff that had over time somewhat deteriorated with people leaving and not being replaced. So my main hope is that we're here to serve the faithful, the clergy, the religious in our parishes. and I think we're in a better place today than we were maybe a few years ago. Just some examples of that. We just had very recently the Diocesan Men's Conference. That's an annual event now. It was sporadic in the past, and having it every year, we have a wonderful build-up, and it's a great day of fraternity for men to come together and learn together, have a great time to listen and discuss things with one another. We have the Diocesan Women's Conference annually, a catechetical conference. So these are wonderful opportunities provided by the staff here at the diocese. Another area I think that we need to recognize is the good number of men we have who are in formation to the priesthood. One of the bishop's responsibilities is to provide for the future needs of the church regarding priests. And a survey just came out from a national office that monitors vocations, and we're in the top 13 dioceses in the United States regarding what they call a healthy position. The number of men in formation, the number of parishes that that have a single priest pastoring them. So that's a great, I think, compliment to our faithful and the number of vocations that we have. God willing, we'll have 5 ordinations to the priesthood this coming June. One other thing I'd point out regarding accomplishments, and that is our communications office. Kind of what we're doing here is something we've done for a while, but we've really tried to increase our presence in social media and do different kinds of programming to get the good news of the Catholic faith and the gospel of Christ out. Just in a more in a fuller way, in ways that where we know the general public are. And using these means of communication, I think we're doing it in a more robust way today.
Yeah, we Bishop, we're fine. You and I are around the same age. We're good to have young people like Jordan here.
That's right.
Younger
yes.
people who know about social media
Indeed.
and be able to get that word out. You know, when I talk to the colleagues at Catholic Charities and many of the charitable organizations here in our region, and there's so much heartache and things that go on, but every single day they come back to work. Like you, even despite all the challenges that you faced over these last 8 years, what are some of the things, like when you wake up in the morning and say, you know, I really am looking forward to this day, this week, is it the people that you meet, or what is it that keeps you going?
Well, it is the opportunity. I say that my favorite time, when sometimes children will ask me, what's your favorite thing about being a bishop? And it's being out of the office. You know, it's being in our parishes, in our schools. I just completed the visit to all of our high schools, and we have a special assembly, and I speak to all the seniors who are getting ready to transition from high school into the next level of education. And I talk to them about trying to keep their Catholic faith on campus. And it's a great interaction. I enjoy that very much. But my joy, what energizes me, is to being out among the faithful of our diocese, so in parishes, in schools, wherever some of our institutions, to be present, to get people get to know me better and me get to know them better.
And again, the bishop mentioned some of the men's and women's events and any of the events that are going on in the diocese. You can learn more details about those when they happen and reserve your space by going to the website hbgdiocese.org. When I used to live over this way and I used to drive past the diocesan offices here on Union Deposit Road at Christmas and Easter, I always glanced up, and it was so inspirational to see some of the messages on the board. To just drive past this complex. And if you're lucky enough and you come by and you visit the offices, then it's quite inspiring. But I noticed when I walked into the Diocesan Center today, the display cases in the reception area, they all seem to have a Eucharist theme. Can you tell us more about that?
Surely, and they do indeed. You can't miss those large display windows when you enter into the diocesan center. And the most recent display that we have there has been put together to emphasize this initiative of the United States Catholic bishops that we approved last November at our plenary meeting in Baltimore, and that is a program of Eucharistic revival. The development of this Eucharistic revival is due in part to a Pew Research study was done back in 2019, and it suggests, and we have to take, I think, studies with a grain of salt, but nevertheless, the study suggests that only maybe 1/3 of U.S. Catholics truly believe the Church's teaching about the Eucharist, that the Eucharist is the body and blood of Christ, the real presence of the living, risen Jesus. That's a very central truth of Catholic faith, and the study seems to show that it's been diluted in the lives of many, many people. So this revival is to try to rekindle a Eucharistic understanding and a Eucharistic amazement, as Pope St. John Paul II wrote about, a Eucharistic amazement. The revival officially begins June of this year, June of 2022, with a diocesan phase, and then it will continue for 3 years. The second year, it is a parish phase, and then the third year, a national phase. So during the first year, every diocese is encouraged to hold events and activities that have the Eucharist as a primary focus. Starting next July of 2023, parishes will be encouraged to do the same kinds of things. So those events might include catechesis on the Eucharist, teaching on the parts of the Mass, our official divine, our highest form of worship, small group formation programs, those sorts of things in each of our parish communities. And then finally, in July of 2024, the revival program will culminate with a nationwide Eucharistic Congress. That will be held in July in Indianapolis. And we're asking the Catholic faithful to come together from throughout the United States to honor and to celebrate the amazing gift Christ has given us in the sacrament of the Eucharist. The purpose, again, is not to create new documents. There is a document that the bishops have approved, a teaching document regarding the Eucharist, but really what we want to do is to foster a deeper devotion, a true amazement, knowledge, and understanding about the Eucharist throughout the Catholic Church here in the United States. COVID actually delayed plans for the revival, and I think the challenges we face because of the pandemic, because we temporarily even closed our churches for a time, have made the effort even that much more important.
You know, it's one of the great things that I've learned in my 60-some years of life and attending Mass. And so many times we sit during the service and we kind of take for granted. We say the prayers and do the procedure of the Mass, kind of like rote memory, and don't really think about it. But there's so many times when I just sit there, and either when the priest was doing the homily or something to explain certain things, the Mass is somewhat of an education, and this Eucharist display and service is kind of like that. It's, we're always learning. I think we need to take that time to learn more about what we say, what we pray, and what we do as part of being a Catholic. Don't you think?
Absolutely, I do, Michael. Yes, and as you say, we can always learn more. These supernatural mysteries are so packed with meaning that we'll never exhaust that meaning. There's always more to understand. Just more gold to be mined as we study and think about these beautiful gifts that the Lord has given us.
The most important part of any of our lives is enriching our lives, and especially getting through the tough times, be it war, be it personal suffering, illness, disease, and also the COVID situation, in fact, too, was keeping our faith. Faith is so strong with me that I rely on it and pray, and it has shown a light for me and for so many others to help get through the tough times. And there always would be tough times in our lives. Do you think that COVID has had a negative effect or a positive effect on the faithfulness of people?
Well, my experience, Michael, is that things like the pandemic and various crises tend to increase faithfulness because they kind of are a wake-up call, I think, in our lives to remind us of our vulnerability and the illusion that we sometimes have that we're in control of things. And something like the pandemic or other crises kind of slaps us in the face and say, hey, wake up, you are not in control, and you are dependent. So in that sense, I think COVID has a positive effect regarding faith and turning to God and acknowledging our dependence upon God. There was, of course, a negative effect in part regarding COVID, and that was that it prevented us from gathering for worship for a time. And there still are people, and I mean, we have to honor that, but they're timid about coming together in person. There's that reluctance on the part of some of the faithful. So it's going to take some time till we get back, and I hope even grow beyond where we were pre-COVID times in terms of the faithful participating in Mass and in the other ministries and opportunities that all of our parishes provide.
Holy Week, one of the holiest times for the Catholic Church, and one of the days during this week is Holy Saturday of the Easter Vigil, and I understand this is also a day during the year when people are welcomed into the Catholic faith. Talk to us about that.
Surely, and that is true. The Easter Vigil, the great liturgy that's held on when it gets dark on Holy Saturday, leading us into the great celebration of Easter Sunday, that's been called the mother of all liturgies. It's a rather for the Latin Church, it's a long liturgy, but within that Easter Vigil, we celebrate the initiation sacraments. So these are people who have never been baptized, who are not Christian, but have chosen to join us in the Catholic Church. And so during that vigil, the initiation sacraments will be received. They'll be baptized. They'll receive the sacrament of confirmation, the full gift of God the Holy Spirit, and then for the first time they'll be welcomed at the Eucharistic table. They'll make their first Holy Communion. So this is a very ancient practice from the early centuries of the Church. That Easter Vigil was the time to bring people into the Church who had never been baptized. So this year there are well over 100 people.
Wow.
We gathered on the first Sunday of Lent at the cathedral, and they're called catechumens. They're preparing to come in for the sacraments of initiation. But at that ceremony, they became the elect, the chosen by God to come to full communion with the Catholic Church. There's another group of people, and I don't even have a number on that because this happens all year long, and those are baptized Christians who chose to come into full communion with the Catholic Church. So that can happen at any time during the year. But Easter, the Easter Vigil on Holy Saturday is the time for the complete Christian initiation of those who are coming into the Church.
Well, Bishop, again, thank you so much for your time, your inspiration, and brightening up this most holy time of year. It's always a pleasure to have a sit down with you, and I hope our listeners, and I know they do, they enjoy this time together as we celebrate these most joyous seasons. So thank you again.
You're most welcome, Michael.
I'm Michael Parks, and for Bishop Gaynor from the Roman Catholic Diocese of Harrisburg, a very, very happy and blessed Easter.